All right. So we should be live now. Sorry I'm running late, guys. I'm going to wait for the chat to just confirm that we're live here. Yeah, sorry I am running late today. I was actually just shooting another interview for the channel, and the conversation just went for a very long time, as they often do, because we just have so much that we like to talk about, and the guests like to talk about. So, yeah, if people can just let me know if the video and audio sounds good. Mason Berry says all good. Okay, cool. Yeah, so just like usual, if you guys can just let me know if there is an issue, obviously with the sound and video, which we may have. My internet's been acting up a little bit today, so hopefully things will be smooth. But as you know, with me, they often aren't. I am going to be moving in about 6 or 7 days to a new house where we're going to be getting like hopefully really good internet. So hopefully that will help with everything going forward. So I'm going to start with some questions. How about that? Nice to see all of you guys. Lots of familiar faces. Thank you for joining me this morning. So Basic Trainer starts by just saying, let's just jump into it. I may not be able to go the full time today. I'm going to do my best to at least go like an hour and a half or so. All right. So Basic Trainer asks, is the 900K trade for the Illustrator card a good sign? I will preface this by saying I just talked Pokemon for 3 hours straight. So I'm going to do my best to be sharp for you guys, but I may be a little bit slower than usual. So, okay. Basic Trainer. Is the 900K trade for the Illustrator card a good sign for the market and hobby in general, as both parties would have to be confident in the card's individual values in order to make such a trade? So, no, honestly, trades often happen when people, I would guess, either don't have the cash for such a card, of course, but they'd be more likely to happen if people aren't that comfortable with the cards because they don't want to trade, they don't want to buy with the value sustaining themselves because they don't want to use cash or buy in cash with fear that the cards may come down. So one way to hedge against that would actually be to trade, because likely if one card goes down, the other cards are going to go down on the other side, and they would still potentially be of equal value. I'm not saying that that's what happened here. Likely what happened here was just that $900,000 is a lot of money, and not a lot of people have $900,000 to spend on a single Pokemon card, so it was easier and only feasible to do through a trade. But I don't know the specific details. I was not involved in this trade in any way. PokiJ says he's looking forward to this. I'm glad. Basic Trainers, just keep up the great work. Thank you. ODV Pokemon, nice to see ya. Omnipoke Joe's here. Good to see ya. Mason Berry said they set an alarm for this. I appreciate that. Appreciate you being here. This definitely can't be possible without people like engaging and asking questions. And I'm really enjoying it. Continue to really enjoy it. Becoming this and the long Pokemon conversations with people have become my two favorite things to do for sure. Okay, so Garrett says, currently I have $500 I'd like to invest in Pokemon. I'm thinking of buying some vintage/promo cards as well as potentially getting 25th anniversary stuff. Would appreciate some advice. $500. So, I would say your best bet's probably, instead of thinking about investing, is probably collecting what you enjoy, to be completely honest, for that kind of money. Collecting what you actually want to have and what will make you the most happy. I don't think with $500 you're going to see like huge returns in anything right now, and you may lose some. uh, that it's probably worth not having the joy of having exactly what you want. Now that's if you buy something and hold the product. Now, if you have a lot of knowledge and skill and ability in the market and practice, you can take $500 and you can flip it a bunch, buy things, sell them at margin, consistently, and you can build up cash flow and then start buying collections and then kind of move up there and try to be pretty aggressive in terms of building a bigger collection, or a collection that's more, with sort of like investment grade, we could say, cards in it, or things that I would consider investment grade. If you're gonna go down that sort of like flipping route, I think definitely there'll be opportunity with 25th anniversary stuff. So I think that's a good instinct. I think paying attention on what the hype channels are talking about, which promos they're talking about, trying to buy them, quickly, directly from, directly at retail, and then maybe selling them quickly into the market. You can try to buy a bunch of them and then flip them. There's going to be a lot of competition for that. There are a lot of people doing that, but that has continued to, at least so far, be successful. I would say everything is a risk right now. Basic Trainer says 500 big ones. He said that I would choose the 25th anniversary products and keep them sealed. I think that that is a way to go. Certainly in the last couple of years, keeping sealed Japanese stuff has been particularly stuff that's been really popular. Like some of these like specialty sets have really gone up in value a lot, like CP6, like PokiJ, like Shiny GX. I'm not sure I understand that pattern, and I don't see the value that other people seem to see. So that wouldn't be what I would do, because one thing I like to try and talk about is you should really understand why something is valuable. You should get it yourself and probably not just follow other people. But if you see the investor value in some of those things and why they should be going up 4, 5, 6 times in value, like some of those have, that's a place that you could sort of momentum invest into. Obviously the thing those do have going for them is they have cool boxes, they have some cool cards in them, and they also have fairly limited release, generally speaking, as compared to the English side. Other people saying 25th anniversary product's probably a good call. Yeah, I think there's certainly going to be a lot of buzz around the 25th anniversary in eyes. So as long as Pokemon delivers that product and people like it, there will be certainly a lot of people wanting to buy it. Let's see. Mitch says, WotC e-reader sets don't have English first editions, right? I'm curious why these aren't more expensive, especially because of low print runs and there are so many holos in the set, reducing chances to pull. Yes, those are the points that I've tried to make on this channel. Definitely right. Yes, there's no English first edition. There is a Japanese first edition on the Japanese side, first edition and unlimited, but English, just that card. You hit the money on the head in terms of the low print runs, which is more known, but a little bit more of an important point is that also there are lots of holos in that set, and so it's hard to pull each individual holo from those sets than to pull each individual holo from any of the Wizards of the Coast sets. And it's part of why the pops are lower on some of them also. That contributes to it. The issue with e-readers is always going to be the popularity, as compared to some of the WotC, and the fact that it's not first appearances of Pokemon like you can get in the rest of WotC, in the earlier WotC. But for me, Mitch, I love those cards. They were some of the first cards I targeted. I felt like those, the Neos, and the Gold Stars, when I got into the hobby, were the most undervalued cards for me personally. And then trophies. Trophies were... and particularly certain trophies that I was getting into. So I think that although those cards have gone up a lot and a lot of things have kind of like relatively gone up, I still, because it's fairly relative in terms of the growth on those compared to other things, I see more value in those personally than some other options. But I do think the downside is that they're not the first appearances of Pokemon. I do think that will matter in the long run. And I also think that it just not having the same layout may not connect, to as many people with the e-reader stuff. I do think the art is so incredible on those that particularly ones, the cards that have the most popular Pokemon, and like in that video with Gem Mint, I was talking about the Mew. The Mew is the first holo appearance in a set. It's the first Mew set card. And so when I said that it doesn't have first appearance, that isn't true, right? That is an example. And so a card like that in particular, I think isn't appreciated for the beauty of the art and for what it is historically in the hobby. And I do think that over time, those things will matter. Frushfunk says that E-Series hasn't boomed yet, and he's put 10K in E-Series this year. Hopefully it wasn't a mistake. Well, what I would say is it won't be a mistake if you like them, hopefully. So hopefully you also really enjoy them and will cherish that collection. I do think that E-Series, of course, will retrace with other things if there is a sort of a broader retrace, a broader vintage retrace, and has obviously in some cases already retraced a decent amount, depending on the card. But some of them are such low pop that they're just not, if someone really wants it, you can set the price if you're selling. And I have a number of those cards. So, you're just not, whereas like, Jungle Fossil, Team Rocket, PSA 10s in a lot of cases, but certainly PSA 9s they're for the foreseeable future always going to be multiple people undercutting each other wanting to sell those. Yeah, so Omnipoke hit it exactly on the head. Many 90s kids didn't make it to E-Series, so it doesn't have the same household nostalgia necessarily, but the cards are awesome and the scarcity is on your side. Yeah, so exactly. Freshfunk says, I just think it's ridiculous that PSA 10 E-Series holos are as low as like $300 right now, but super available shiny Zard is 1.5K or whatever. That will change over time, I bet. Yeah, definitely agree with you there. But we'll see. Team Trubbish says, I know that you are well versed in other collectibles. Do you see a resemblance of modern Pokemon investing 290 sports cards? So the thing about it is like we just can't know if this is going to be like the junk wax era Pokemon, like modern Pokemon, because although we've seen a huge increase, there could even be a bigger increase in modern possibly in the world. It is possible. And Pokemon, there are a few big differences, I would say. One is in sports cards, you were having so many different companies print sport cards all at once. And that was creating a lot of, like, all these different brands. You had like 10 choices, right? To get to, and I think that really saturated the market even more. And when you look at comic books, the same thing happened where they were printing like all of these alternative arts of like the exact same comic. We have some of that in Pokemon, but I think Pokemon's doing a pretty good job of not oversaturating that. Now, will they oversaturate the product if they like reprint a bunch of stuff and keep reprinting for a long time? Maybe. I think also with the pandemic this year, it's unclear, like maybe they just haven't been able to print as much as they would have liked to, and they may never go back and reprint these sets that much. So that's another thing of that maybe they just aren't going to print that much product. It's all going to come down to supply and demand, and we just don't know. But Team Trubbish, it's definitely something that is exactly what I'd be looking at and thinking about. That exact question. Blue Goose Collectibles says, disparity between raw graded cards shows market is flooded with people for profit versus collect. Profit is easier on graded cards from price data. Raw close to graded value would show a healthier market. Yes. I generally agree with that. I think that it's not 100%, but I generally agree with the fact that, because I do think that people really love to collect graded cards too, but I for so many reasons, I see that in the market right now, and I see people, and I did an interview today where we talked a lot about this. This idea that people seem to be buying cards. They're looking to turn their money into more money rather than build the exact collection that they want, and they're more interested in me telling them, for example, and other people telling them what specifically they should buy that will make them the most money rather than what specifically they should buy that they'll enjoy the most from a collector's perspective. And that's definitely the type of stuff Blue Goose Collectible that I picked up on and started talking about, months ago, and continues to be the case. All right, let's see what we got here. Stephen Kissone says, "What's up, Jake? What's up, man? Thanks for joining us here and contributing." Frushfunk says that he only ever collected base set as a kid and thinks it's the most overrated set for him. Hopefully, not all collectors just go for their nostalgia and branch out into other eras. Yeah, I'm definitely, for me, I like it all as a collector. There are things I like about Modern. I really like the Amazing Rares and the look of those cards. I like a lot of the shiny cards from Hidden Fates, just the way they look, particularly the baby shinies. I actually prefer to the full art shinies, just for me personally. And I like the like the Shining Legend shinies, the way they looked. And then there are cards here and there throughout the sets that I really like as a collector. And then I also really I love base set. It was my childhood. I love Jungle Fossil, Team Rocket, all these things. It was my childhood. But E-Series, for example, was more exciting to me in a lot of ways when I got back in, because it had those like different unique arts that I never saw before that I thought were like really beautiful outside of the nostalgia. Gold Stars were really exciting to me because of their rarity. I wasn't aware that Pokemon could be that rare. 1 out of 72 was exciting. And also I think the art on those is tremendous. Some of the Nintendo EX cards from that era that I never knew about as a kid, again, loved the art, got excited to learn about them. So I think both things can be true, and probably are true for a lot of people. I think that certainly some people are just going to like Modern or just going to like Vintage, and that's their genuine feeling and genuine opinion. I think a lot of other people are probably, not giving it a chance, maybe, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but are maybe a little bit too close-minded on like what they enjoy. I think when we talk about what's going to make you money is a very different conversation from what you love and enjoy, although I think that they're very important because what you love and enjoy, as long as it also has the rarity and the value principles, is going to be what's investable, as long as what you love and enjoy is what a lot of people love and enjoy. And so I think that's the way to use your collector understanding, what really excites you as a collector, not as a investor, to inform investing if you want to invest. Some other people here, Jeremy Judkins and Shot9X and Ernesto Alvarez. Recognize all of your names. Thank you for being here. Swami, good to see ya. Watsy Fetish, good to see ya. Goldlux Mindplay. Goldlux Mindplay asks, "Hey Jake, thoughts on the Delta Species cards from EX era? I think they are really unique and underrated." Yeah, Delta Species are interesting. So for those who don't know, the Delta Species cards are pretty unique cards in a lot of ways from those eras where they had like the Pokemon would have a different type. So if it normally was like a fire type, it might be a water type or something like that, and they would change the types. I think they're cool. I agree with you. I think that they don't get the premium they should within that. They should definitely get a little bit more of a premium, although it's going to depend on the coolness of them. When I was first getting into that era, I was going a little more after those because I saw that too. So I think you're picking up on a good value assessment where this is something unique, something different that is going to make this card stand out. Daniel Solomon says, "I can't wait for the DBZ videos that I'm going to make." Yeah. So I want to be really careful not to push and hype DBZ. I'm so excited about DBZ that it's hard for me not to talk about it. My goal, and you guys can hold me accountable, my goal is to give you guys information on it and tell you how much I love it and why I think it has really good potential, certainly to be investable. But I don't even care about the money part. I just think it's exciting. I think it's this undiscovered thing. I think so many people would love it and enjoy it if they knew more about the vintage stuff, and I'm going to learn as much as possible to share it with you guys. But I certainly want to be held accountable. I don't want to be to not be hypocritical is very important, right? With all the stuff I talk about. And if I'm going to help, right, build a new market, I need to help build a new market in a way that I think is healthy and good. Just like I look at, things that Gary did and other people, Charlie would talk to, other people who helped sort of establish price points and build markets. I don't think, building markets, I think is a good thing if it's done in a way that you're getting information out there, not in a way that you're hyping things up or giving misinformation or misleading people in any way about your intentions. So we'll have to see how that goes. So got a super chat from Kevin G. Kevin G says, "Thank you, Jake. I've learned a lot and made smarter decisions in Pokemon and beyond. I found your rant about Gary V influencers valuable. Question people's motivations and educate yourself." Yeah. Yes, I think that's what it comes down to. And I think being careful, right, about what's the best way to put it? I think that what can happen online is people create these sort of like parasocial relationships with influencers and create these sort of one-sided relationships where the influencer is getting, and this isn't a reflection on Gary Vee, but just in general, where an influencer might be getting a lot more benefit from you than they are giving to you, and I think that trying to think about it that way, that I am here either to help provide you like interesting information that's going to help you make decisions in your life or teach you, or, think more critically or whatever, or I'm here just for pure entertainment and enjoyment. I am not an expert, how should I put it? What is an expert, I guess, is a difficult thing. I think that I'll try to be very clear about what I know and what I don't know, but I also think that it's very important for people here to, if you disagree with me, to disagree with me. And be passionate about it, just be respectful, and we can both learn from that. I don't assume that if I make a suggestion and it doesn't seem good, don't follow it just because you think I'm trustworthy, or you think I might know something that you don't know. Do your research, ask the follow-up questions, be like, well, Jake, you were kind of contradicted yourself here. That didn't really make sense. Your argument wasn't persuasive to me because of this, and this reason, and you should, at the end of the day, absolutely 100% do what you think is best and use my ideas as a point to reflect with, and help you think, critically or disagree with, rather than agreeing with all the opinions we're going to say on this channel, that sort of thing. So I'm glad that you are appreciating that. Pat Flynn says, "Thanks for the conversation. Happy New Year's to you and the community." Thanks, Pat. Nice to see you here. Thank you. Let's see. Stephen Cousin says, "This is a bit ironic, but do you think when the pandemic is over, we will see a big retrace in prices?" Yeah, I think it's kind of the simplest question with that, right? Is that when the pandemic's over, are people going to go back to other hobbies that aren't as online? Are they going to go away from these like pack selling channels, for example, which are being used for entertainment right now? And if people go away from the pack selling channels, how's that going to affect the price of the booster boxes? And then how's that going to affect the PSA cards? All of that, I think common sense makes sense to some degree. When I can go back to playing in my basketball game 3 times a week, and I can go back to performing, at bars and doing music and all those sorts of things, I'm just not going to have as much time or as much interest maybe in some of this stuff. And I think that that'll be true for a lot of people. They won't be at home. Maybe they'll also, some of the negative stuff will leave, which is, maybe if people are feeling depressed and not good, and so they're spending outside their budget to help, they have some buying addiction or some gambling addiction to help make themselves feel better during this difficult time. Some of that stuff may clear up as well and bring prices down. So I think that stuff is fairly common sense, but it could be very wrong. There could be other factors. Those things could be true, but then there could be other factors that offset that. Common sense would have said when we entered this pandemic, right, that people wouldn't be putting in cards because people would be afraid and they'd be fearful. and they would want to save money and put that money into things that maybe are more proven investments, and or just keep it, in cash, or would need to spend it more on living expenses if they lost their job and that sort of thing. And, how many people in this country, right? We hear this stat a lot, can afford, a $500 expense, right? And yet people were very bullish in spending lots and lots of money on Pokemon. And I think that was a variety of factors, including PSA closing and all these sorts of things, but also people just taking their money out of other assets, putting it in assets that were maybe felt like they might have, honestly, a lot more quick upside because they wanted to make money quickly and wanted that intense rush and more of that gambling enjoyment rush. And they wanted the fun of the nostalgia and the connection they had to this to help them get through a difficult time. So I think all of that's true. I think people also moved home and rediscovered their collections. I think it's an age thing. I think this was going to happen anyway and was already happening anyway because people in their 30s were rediscovering their, cards from when they were 12. All those reasons and more. Nobody can tell you what percentage of each of those things are, but I think that being aware of those and understanding that each one of those things creates risk is the way to think about it. How much risk, I don't know. All right, a lot of people here. Nice seeing you all. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Sakari, good to see you here. Happy New Year to you as well. Pathlin says, let me make sure I didn't. Oh, I think I missed one question here. Derek Schwartz Music asks, what are your thoughts on the longevity of the tag team alternate arts? I'm a little concerned about them because I think that they were hyped up by certain influencers. I think that some people do really like them. I think other people probably bought them because they were being told to like them, if I'm being completely blunt and honest about those. I would be, it's really going to come down to how many of those exist, how cool the art is, how standout the art is. I do think tag team as a concept is interesting. As the first time, not the first time multiple Pokemon were on a card, we have examples of that, and we also have examples like in the like in some of those Legends booster packs, right? You had those secret rare cards that they were split into two, and they had two legendary Pokemon on them each. But it was the first time we saw a lot of that happening, and sets really being built around that identity. And so I think that from a historic standpoint might mean something in the history of Pokemon, the first time they started doing that more aggressively. And I think some of the alternative arts have really cool art. So, what I would say is, and what I try to say there is, like, don't buy something because someone's telling you to like it or telling you that it's going to go up in price a lot. I would say buy it because you really respond to the art and really like the art. And I think that's also the best investment advice, not just the good at collecting advice, but the best investment advice. Because I think the cards that people really respond to now are going to be the cards that people are always going to respond to. But you have to be careful. Am I responding to this card because my favorite YouTuber told me to like this card or told me he likes the card, or am I responding to the card, in it of myself, that sort of thing. And that could be a hard thing to differentiate, but that's what I would be thinking of. The other thing with that, Derek, is I really have no idea which ones are going to end up being rarer. I think studying the pop reports will be really important to see how many are graded. Is this a difficult card to grade? If you're going to buy a PSA 10, trying to get one that has a very low pop, has some rarity, you're going to want to check the pop reports, not only to see how many are graded now, but you're gonna want to check the pop reports to see how quickly they're being graded, how many more are being graded, and that may give you a sense of how many more will eventually be graded, the speed at which they're being graded now. So all of that stuff is what I would look at. Slab Sniper says, Pat Flynn says, curious about your take on the great slab rush that's coming and how it'll change the market. So it'll be interesting to see. So there are lots of bulk orders at PSA that have not moved in like 8-9 months, right? And there are a lot more that have been sent in since then. So when all these bulk orders get back, which I'm sure are in large part filled with commons and uncommon vintage cards, unlimited hollows from vintage, some not high graded, plenty of not high graded, even first edition hollows from vintage, and tons of modern. How that stuff hits the market and in what way is definitely an important thing to speculate on. Is it all going to rush on? Is PSA going to slowly grade it out? Are we going to take years to get some of that stuff back? I have no idea. It's going to be a wait and see. I talked to Graded Gem and Ludkins about, briefly more Ludkins recently, but because I just had Charlie on and we talked a decent amount, but and I've heard his interviews in other places and, scour the internet for the information type of thing. But, just getting a sense of how many modern cards they're grading right now, tens of thousands of cards from specific sets, tens of thousands of a single card, trying to get a sense of how much it's going to be. The real questions are going to be how many people are grading those cards for profit to sell them into the market versus how many people are grading those cards because they have a genuine interest in holding those cards and want those cards for the long term and wouldn't sell even if the price came down. And I don't feel confident that that everyone or the vast majority of those people are buying the cards for themselves to hold in their collections. I don't feel confident in that, but I also don't know that that's not the case. So I think that it's the word is risk, right? The word, like all these things create big unknowns about how the market is going to respond, how people are going to respond. I think it's why, more than ever, it's important right now to make value assessments based on how you feel about things, and try not to be too swayed by the prices going up or the prices going down. Making those value assessments of what you think it should be worth and trying to stick to that over time, and then seeing how your value assessments do compare to the market over time is your best bet. Jazz says everyone and their grandma is grading cards. Yeah, I mean, I think particularly cards like PSA 8, PSA 7, just like random GX cards, like modern cards. Those cards I wouldn't pay $2 for it, even in a slab. I just have no interest. I have no interest in owning that card. To me, that's just like annoying. Like that would just be bulk that would sit in my room. I would never look at it. Like there's no value. There's no value for me for that, even though I know someone paid $12 or $14 or $15 or $20, whatever they paid to get that graded. So I think that is the type of stuff that a lot of people are doing. A lot of people are just grading like everything. I would even be hesitant and to grade like rainbow rares unless you were sure they were 10s, let alone things that aren't rainbow rares or secret or rare level. I think, and what I've told people is, if you're doing this, if you're hoping that these cards are if you're planning on holding these cards and not flipping them into the market, in my opinion, your best bet is to wait and hold them ungraded now, because your cost is then $12-13 less on it, and if it goes up, you can grade it in the future. If not enough of them get graded, you can grade them in the future, and you're gonna hold it anyway. So why rush to grade it? I think the reason people in some ways are rushing to grade too is because they want the card for their collection graded because it makes them happy. I think that's a really good reason to do it. But to be very clear with yourself that you're not rushing to grade it, it's not probably the smartest value, decision. It's a decision you're making because you're a collector. So trying to separate that, collector, investor parts of yourselves. Slab Saber says, I don't know why people seem to think a rush of cards will come when PSA can only trickle out orders. Yeah, so I think that's the other point, is that will it, when we say trickle out, though, what does that mean? Does that mean a couple hundred a day, a couple hundred modern cards coming out a day, and then, 10% of those are hitting the market? That will be a flood on eBay of these if that happens, if they start really ramping it up and getting it out. But if it's really like, once every few, like if it takes years, as I said before, Slab Sniper, and it really takes like years to get these back, and they do it in like little bits here and then little bits a month later, then I agree with you. That'll will not panic the market as much, and it will keep the appearance of at least the appearance of value of these things, and of that they're rarer than they actually are. It'll keep that appearance up, which will help the value, I think, for most people. Mason Berry says, what does the fever of opening packs do to a hobby where sealed is near non-existent? At what price point does that desire to crack packs seem not worth it? Yeah, so the interview I did today, the conversation I did today was with someone who is a pack opening channel, and we talked a lot about the psychology of his psychology of why he does pack openings, the psychology of his buyers, why they're buying from him, what they're getting out of it, that sort of thing, what he thinks, which really gets to the heart of what you're saying here. You know, I think that people are buying, when we talk about someone who's selling the packs, when we talk about the person who's selling the packs, like, they are doing it because they, for you know, I mean, someone like PokiRev gets a variety of income from his channel, from, you know, from the, you know, solid ad revenue to the even more solid membership revenue to the slight margins he's making on packs, probably not that much, you know, to the affiliate links, which are huge, you know, everyone clicking on one of those affiliate links, you know, he gets a percentage off of anything that people buy on eBay, that sort of thing. And then not to mention just the constant stream of like people giving him like 10, 20, 50, $60, you know, to get his attention, to get a shout out from him, those sorts of things. So he has all of those incentives to keep opening as long as people keep wanting it. So I think your question might be more towards like, why, like, at what point will people stop paying? And I think a lot of the people paying the really high dollar amounts, or some of them, are streamers right now, and they're getting shout outs. Like, they're buying each other's packs and they're all getting shout outs, and they're all building their brands and their channels around Pokemon. And that pays financial dividends for them, because the bigger they get, you know, on what's it called, on Twitch, right? That's been huge. Pokemon has been huge, and there was like Pokemon Week on Twitch, and where they all opened up all these boxes and bought packs from each other. You know, the Logan Paul box break, people who bought packs for $11,000, which was, you know, an insanely high price at that point, were doing it to get their name shouted out, because that got them tons and tons of exposure, and that's where the value was. So there's a lot of other value in all of this outside of the Pokemon cards themselves. And so if you're just an average person, Mason, and you're not looking to build a brand around this, and you're just looking to get a deal on cards, you have to be aware that the people aren't paying, these prices do not reflect probably what we're all value, or what a lot of people are valuing the cards at. They're evaluating the branding opportunity and getting your name called out opportunity for some of those bigger openings. Now, for a lot of the other openings, or the openings that PokiRev does, it's about the community. You know, it's about the entertainment. It's about getting your name called out by PokiRev, and probably feeling like you have a relationship with him, which can have its problems. But, you know, but I think for a lot of people, it's been a lonely, difficult year, and I'm sure, you know, for me, right, doing this channel and talking and connecting to you gives me a form of connection to people, and for you all watching and being here, it also gives you a form of connection to other people, when a lot of us might be isolated in our houses and not seeing people. So there's a greater need and desire and want, I think, for community for a lot of people right now. And they can't get that in person, so they're going toward it online. So I think that's why so many streamers, whether it's in Pokemon or other sorts of places, have grown so much, you know, so much during this time. It's not just Pokemon. So the issue with all of that is, how sustainable is all of that? And if you're looking to invest in the Pokemon product, is it the Pokemon product that's driving all of that and that will sustain itself, or is it the other features? And so that's where I would be careful. ODV Pokemon says, I think 60% of what is in the bulk subs will flood the market, but whether the demand for the type of modern bulk is there or not, which I doubt, but hey, it's Pokemon. Yeah. We'll have to see, right? It'll be interesting. Sakari says, I just released a video on Pump and Dump, Scheme, investor groups. Do you have any thoughts on these groups we are seeing pop up a lot recently? Yeah, it's something that's very common, in lots of different markets. Certainly in the stock market, certainly in fine art, antiques. There are groups of people who have basically these schemes where they contact a lot of people, they try and get a number of followers, and then all of those followers at once buy out basically a certain product or buy a lot of a certain product. And then once they bought it out or bought most of it, then they all go onto their various platforms and shill it up and say, it's amazing, everyone loves this, look at the prices it's going for. And people who are, lots of people then fall for that hype. They see those higher prices, which trigger something in their brain saying, okay, this is more valuable or this is valuable. And they see all these other people talking about it. Really, all the people involved are just, don't necessarily believe what they're saying. They just are hyping it up because they bought the product. So, that's going to happen. That happens in every industry. It's why knowledge and developing your own ability to have pattern recognitions, your own ability to make value assessments, is so important, so that you don't get swayed by the masses, by the hype, when the hype doesn't say anything at all substantive. There's zero substance, in most cases to these things. Slab Sniper says, can we petition for PSA to introduce 9.5 grades? Definitely, there are cards that certainly are very weak 9s or very weak 10s or strong 9s. Basic Trainer, my personal belief on Slab Rush is that the pop report has a long way to go to catch up to the millions of fans worldwide. Yeah, so there are millions. So I think what I would say about that is that I do think that people in Pokemon are too bullish on that in general, Basic Trainer. That there are millions of Pokemon fans out there who want these cards just to put in their collections at high values, these graded cards. I don't see that and feel that at this point. I feel like a lot of people are wanting to make money. And it's not so, and in a lot of cases, it's not about the cards themselves and wanting to collect the cards. So that concerns me in a number of cases. Of course, there are millions of Pokemon fans, but are there millions of Pokemon card fans who want graded cards, who want a lot of graded cards, who are going to want all the new modern graded cards from each set? It's and how many collectors are there? And, people who are going to spend lots and lots of money on collectors, particularly if they know they can't make money from it or it's not going to go up. So I'm a little hesitant with that. I also think that there are millions of, fans and of all sorts of pop culture collectibles, but that doesn't mean that their cards need to go up or need to be so valuable just because they like the video games or they like the anime show or this or that. So I would be careful assuming that. That being said, it's definitely possible, and is always the argument I also make, Basic Trainer, that it's very possible that that we are actually seeing the early stages of awareness in Pokemon, or we're, I made that bubble video right on Pokemon, which wasn't to say Pokemon's in a bubble or not, but which was to talk about the stages of a bubble. And we could still be in the awareness phase of a making of a bubble. Bubbles are always made. There's always going to be bubbles in everything that you're in and do. But because it's human psychology, frankly, to be irrationally exuberant when money starts to come into the picture and greed takes over. It just happens in every market. This whole talk about how people who are talking about the possibility of bubbles in Pokemon are negative, or they don't care, they haven't been here long. Anyone who says that, yikes. Anyone who says Pokemon, it can't be in a bubble or won't be in a bubble, that's complete nonsense. Every single market always in the process of its existence gets into bubbles, even if they're smaller bubbles where you're only seeing 40% retraces instead of 80% retraces. But we've already seen 80% retraces on certain cards. That was a bubble on that card, you know. So whatever. But you know, I do think that it's possible, right? We're not even at the bubble phase of Pokemon yet. It actually is going to build more because we're still in an awareness phase where more and more people are still discovering it. More and more people are coming back and are going to keep coming back. And the amount of supply right now isn't going to be enough to meet that demand. To me, Basic Trainer, you absolutely, like, I think you're rational in arguing that. I just don't agree with the assessment based on what I'm seeing and what I'm talking to people. And I think it's risky to trust that or believe in that or bet big on that. Too risky for me to do it, but I wouldn't be shocked if Pokemon doubles or triples again, or you know, these sorts of things. E says, have you seen the new Irishu Secret Rare? No, I have not. From PokeGuardian. No, I have not. I'll have to check that out. That it's going to replace the Rainbow Rare slot. Oh, that's cool. That's exciting. I'll definitely check that out. Thank you, E. Put that on my list of things to look at. Sakari says that Nintendo has E-Series has loads of first appearances of third-gen Pokemon. Oh, what first appearances? Let me think. It has... Can you name a few for me, Sakari? So, Expedition doesn't have any new ones. Let's check Aquapolis, just because I'm curious. So I don't see any new ones. Unless I'm missing something. Why don't you let me know, Sakari? I'll keep going with questions, but I think we should talk more about that because I might be missing something. And don't want to put out incorrect information. So Frushfunk donated $2. Appreciate that. And says, thoughts on supply of DBCCG Bandai sets? I do not know, unfortunately. Those are like the 2008, 2009, 2010 maybe. Like pre-DBS. Dragon Ball Super, some of those sets. I'm not super knowledgeable about those. I've been doing a little bit more research on them. I know that the Awakening set is not rare at all. There's tons of that Awakening booster boxes. The other booster boxes are pretty hard to find generally from my experience. I'm just not as big of a fan of those nearly than Score. And I can go into that when we do more of those videos. Personally, for me as a collector. Oh, Sakari says he's talking about the Nintendo E-Series, not the Watts E-Series. Oh, that was the mistake. Yeah. Because I was like, oh yeah, definitely the Nintendo E-Series has those. Because I was literally, you made me scared, Sakari. Because I was like, really? I'm like pretty sure that it only has the second gen Pokemon, unless I've like this whole time been making like an incorrect assumption. And like one or two slipped in there somehow. Okay, cool. I'm glad we cleared that up. Yes. So, as we were saying before, the one of the points I was making about the E series was that it didn't have any first appearance Pokemon in sets outside of that Mew, which was the first time that a Mew Hollow had been in it, which makes it more collectible, and that was one of the problems with the E series. And then I thought Sakari was saying that there were Gen 3 Pokemon in that, but he wasn't. He was actually saying that there are Gen 3 Pokemon in the next Nintendo EX era, which I absolutely agree with, and I actually went after those cards intentionally when I was looking into those, because I think that that's, as I always say on this channel, an underrated thing. And just as a collector, I see tons of value in it. Okay, I'm going to go back to see if we can catch some of these like middle questions before we keep moving, guys. I'm probably going to be skipping some questions because I'm trying to get back to where we were and I'm not 100% sure. Pokemon Classics is here. Nice to see ya. One of my friends said some very nice things about you and that hopefully we're going to have you on the channel eventually. I was meaning to reach out to you. All right, let's just jump into some more questions here. I'll just have to pick where a random place and we'll jump back in. So Ernesto Alvarez asked a question. Actually, ODV Pokemon asked one right before it. I'll answer that one. ODV Pokemon says, what is your opinion, if any, on energy prize / participation event cards? More Japanese promos rather than English gyms, etc. They seem to be chalk or cheese to most. I think that some of the cards that are, so I'm not sure exactly which ones you're speaking of here, but I think that some of the cards, like some of the stamped cards from non-world events, I do think are that I do kind of like, if you're talking about those. Why don't you at the bottom tell me exactly the cards and I can comment on them if I have opinions on specifically what you're talking about there. Ernesto Alvarez says, question, hi Jake, wondering if you could share some of your favorite books, psychology, philosophy, investments, etc. My favorite books. So I think Intelligent Investor is the book that I started with. It's the book my dad gave me when I was starting to become interested in investing. And it's the book that like Warren Buffett read, and I think a lot of people view it as a really important book to read if you're interested in value investing. So I'd say that one for investing is a good place to start. Psychology and philosophy. Not sure if there are any books that really come to mind that I just think are. I've read a lot of. I was a philosophy and psych major in college, and so I read a lot of the major, philosophers, starting from Socrates, Aristotle, to Heidegger, Kant, to to Hume. I was always a big. I like David Hume a lot. A lot of these, there are books you can read, but there are also a lot of shorter articles, reviews of their work, summaries of their work. That's often easier to read than like a whole book on philosophy, because these guys can often be like pretty dense. As far as psychologists, there are a lot of interesting psychologists. I'm not sure I have any that I like. I'm like, they're so amazing. I think Jung's interesting. There are things I didn't think that were that interesting about Jung. I don't know. I tend to not be someone who. I tend to be a little bit of like a devil's advocate-y sort of like. When anyone says something's like so great or so perfect, I tend to be more like, they're interesting points, but in all of these books and all of these things, there are things that I agree with, there are things that I disagree with. I guess my advice is sort of to be like very well read in lots of different perspectives. You know, in politics, you should read widely on the right and the left. In philosophy, you should read widely, you know, from people who are like existentialists, from people who are more like hedonists, from people who are, you know, you should read widely, and that is going to be your best bet in investing. I think, you know, I am a value investor, so I do move towards that. But I think you should read books by momentum investors, by growth investors. I think all of that will be the most valuable, rather than just kind of like, this is the best one, like this is the one that's going to tell you the answers. I think we have a problem in our culture where we are looking for answers from people rather than looking for people to help us think more critically and broaden our thinking, not necessarily give us the correct answer to something. I think there really isn't like an end point or arrival point at correct answers. So something like that is what I would respond to that question with. If I see some people saying I skipped your question. If I skipped your question, feel free to add it, you know, at the bottom. I may skip it again because there are lots of questions, but I'll do my best to hit a number of them. Gus, what are your thoughts on people pricing in future values into their current prices on some items? I feel like people are selling things for above current market based on potential future stocks. Yes. Agreed, Gus. Whenever you hear people saying that this is what's going to happen in 4 months, and so I'm asking that now, like, probably walk away. Like, don't buy from that person. That's very irrational. Then it's like, well, then don't sell and wait 4 months to realize that price. You know, that's that sort of thing. That's a appeal to more of a salesman tactic and appeal to emotion, like that they're trying to appeal to that probably fear of missing out, whether they're doing it intentionally or unintentionally. That's what they're doing. Jose Garza says, never really comment, but always here listening. Appreciate that. Definitely appreciate taking the time to comment and engage in the discussion. But, you know, I do understand that plenty of people are just going to want to, you know, have it on in the background while they're sorting cards or working or doing something else. So I totally get it. I do that too on channels. Just for talk. Hey, Jake, what do you, username, I'll answer that in a sec. Username not found says, what's my favorite Pokemon? Ask what was my favorite Pokemon. I don't know if I have one favorite. It kind of shifts around. My favorite Pokemon are definitely some combination of Dragonite, Alakazam, Gyarados. I probably are my top tier. And then probably just under that, I liked Mew and Mewtwo. And then probably like Charizard and Blastoise, and then Venusaur maybe. What were the other ones I liked? Those are probably all my favorites from Gen 1. From Gen 2, I like, let's see, who do I like the best? I like Espeon and Umbreon. I like Tyranitar a lot. Houndoom, love Houndoom. The starters are okay. Not a humongous fan of the starters. I like Feraligatr, probably the best of the three. Those are some of my favorites, but I really like, I like almost every Pokemon from Gen 1, Gen 2, from Gen 1 and Gen 2, and I probably almost all of them from Gen 3 as well. So even the ones that like people hate on or don't like that much, I still really like them. Like I love like Z and G Emporium, and I tease him because like I love Poliwrath. I think Poliwrath is like a really cool, great Pokemon from my childhood that I think's hilarious, and he's just like always hating on it. I think it's so funny. There are very few Pokemon I don't like from those early, you know, whereas now today there are a lot of Pokemon that just kind of seem a little like the design art and the concept of what this thing is doesn't, you know, do it for me. But I also, you know, didn't, you know, if I was a kid right now and I was seeing some of these brand new Pokemon for the first time, it might, I might feel differently. All right. All right, so many questions. I'm trying to get a decent cross of them. Okay. Remy K says, "Hi Jake, do you know any price info on the PSA 10 first edition Neo Genesis Heracross? There's no public sales data from the last few years. Know of any private sale prices? Thanks." Not that I can recall offhand. I'm trying to think if I don't even think I have any that I like couldn't share with you, because sometimes people tell me prices and they want to keep it private, but they share with me because I'm a friend. But I don't even think there have been any of those that I'm aware of. Yeah, super low pop card. A lot of those cards super low pop, don't come up often. Oh, Mason Barry, is Mason from Cardinal Gaming. Nice to see you here on your other channel. I just read your comment. Andrew Rich says, "What's your opinion on Japanese gold stars right now?" I like Japanese gold stars. They're interesting. Japanese gold stars, they're broken down into first edition and unlimited. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out over time. I honestly like the white border on Japanese gold stars better than I like the yellow border on the English cards for some cards. The way it looks. So personally, as a collector, I do really like them. I do think that they're really cool. I have I think about half of my gold stars are English and half of my gold stars are Japanese, which shows you how much I like Japanese, because usually, particularly of set cards, I have a lot more English, but I felt like the value on Japanese was really good, and also I was getting them ungraded and grading them myself and getting good grades. They were easier to find ungraded in good condition. I think that's still true, that they're still a little bit easier to find ungraded in good condition. I think that's but they're hard. And anything is hard. But like I haven't seen a mint ungraded gold star from English in a while. So I think that they're great cards. I wouldn't say they're undervalued or unnoticed or these sorts of things. I think that they were for a while a little bit. They've come up in value. Maybe they're a little underrated compared to some other things. Somewhere in there would be my gut reaction to it. Let's see. Jordan Scott says, "What's my least favorite set?" My least favorite Pokemon set. I don't know if I have a least favorite set. I mean, nothing like. I mean, I haven't really opened that much of some of the modern sets. I mean, my least favorite set that I've opened in a while was Darkness Ablaze. Just wasn't that fun. So that was kind of just like, I opened a box on the channel, and I did enjoy it, because I do always enjoy opening packs, but comparing it to like Vivid Voltage, I just liked Vivid Voltage so much more. The whole like Steam Siege, Crimson Invasion are like the worst sets of all time. Like, they have cards that are like cool looking in them and are fine. Definitely not particularly fun sets to open. Burning Shadows isn't that fun of a set to open, and yet it has the the Rainbow Rare Charge on it, which makes it somewhat valuable or desirable. I think there are a lot of modern sets that aren't super fun. Rebel Clash. There isn't like a set that I just think's terrible. In terms of like vintage sets, which might be a more interesting way to answer it. Like, is there a vintage set that I think's just terrible? One of the old sets. I'm trying to think if I can say something a little bit controversial, or a little bit maybe, what don't I like of any of those sets? I really like all of them. I guess like base set 2, it's not very controversial. Base set 2 always annoyed me. I actually like Legendary Collection because I liked the reverse hollows immediately. But base set 2 is just kind of a reprint. I guess Evolutions, definitely up there for me. I didn't like Evolutions. I didn't like the print. I didn't like the way that set was built. I didn't like the weird, like that some of the like that there wasn't a Blastoise. I didn't like the look of the cards. I like the holofoil pattern on them, the Cosmo holofoil pattern, but I didn't like the general look, and I didn't like that they, and then I didn't like that they added some of the like the Mega Charizard and some of those full arts into it. It just felt, and those EX and with the Mewtwo, it just didn't feel that great. And then Champion's Path, is fun because the Charizard to try and chase down those Charizards. So it's not as bad to me as like these other sets, but some of these other sets I said, but it's not. The set as a whole is quite weak outside of the Charizard. So it's not a fun set to collect. To like try to collect the full set is there aren't very many cards, and there aren't very many very interesting cards outside of the Charizards. So those are some of the ones that were kind of not my favorites. Us Top 74 says, "What's up, Jake? What's your thoughts on Flesh and Blood?" I have no thoughts on it. Haven't looked at it. Not particularly interested in it. I think it's what little delving into it and information I looked at, it like I just think that there are just a lot more interesting older dead card games that to me are much cool. I much rather collect like Middle Earth CCG than like this new Flesh and Blood, particularly with the prices that people are paying for a brand new set. We'll see. I mean, but I don't really have a knowledgeable opinion because I have not played the game. And, if people really like the game, really like the art, this idea that it's going to be like the next Magic or this or that, I don't know. It's possible. Don't really have too much of an opinion on it. I watched a few of the Rudy videos on it. I watched his question and answer video, where the owner of the company answered a bunch of questions about it, and I definitely don't feel particularly convinced that that's gonna do well or sustain itself. I also don't have any strong feeling like it's gonna implode or whatever. I'm kind of neutral, not super excited, not super bearish, one way or the other. Lau, maybe maybe Pokemon itself is not a bubble, but likely with the Charizard chasers, maybe that part of the hobby isn't a bubble. Yeah, I think that's another way to look at it, is that certain cards can experience, what is a bubble. If we define bubble as basically when something becomes irrational, really shoots up in price over a short amount of time, and that shoot up in price isn't based on a fundamental change in the market, but an irrational sort of change in perception. That isn't sustainable, that isn't going to establish itself, and that's going to implode. Best example being the tulip bubble, where people were paying a whole year's salary for a tulip because they thought, because everyone decided, for no good objective reasons, that this thing should be extremely valuable. So that's the type of thing you should always be aware of. Why does everyone think this thing is valuable? It isn't valuable to me. Is it really valuable to anyone? Are we all just living in a massive groupthink? Those are the questions to ask about specific parts of the hobby too, and about the whole hobby. So I think I'm going to jump to the bottom and just kind of see what people are saying, because they've been in the middle for a while. Jimmy J. Mayer says, "Hey Jake, what are the hot topics of the stream?" Just talking about I think we talked about Gold Stars for a little bit. We talked about E-Series. We talked about some other questions here and there. Swami says, question, not that Pokemon are tulips, but do you see any intrinsic differences between the two? Yeah, so I think that in human psychology, there are patterns that we like collecting things, and things that are collectible have certain value, like intrinsic value traits to them that tulips did not have. And those intrinsic value differences are rarity in the sense of that there's a finite supply of them, and there isn't that there are millions and millions of people, and only, or hundreds of millions, billion people, right, and there are only 30 of that. Relative rarity to the amount of people, that could be interested. Things like age, right? Things that are old, things that have history, things that have significance in a person's life when they were a kid. Whereas tulips, it's like, well, they didn't have a significance to anyone before that period. They didn't have an age to them. They were being grown. They were infinite in the terms of people could just keep growing them. Now there were some rarer versions that were harder to make or to grow, and that made them rarer, but they were something that could be constantly grown. So the supply could keep growing. So those are a few things off the top of my head. But when we think about what makes something collectible, I think human beings for the foreseeable future are going to be collectors of some sort. We like material objects that connect with us emotionally on a certain way. And when we analyze why that is, those are some of the value principles that we come up with that tulips didn't have. So when we think about a specific Pokemon card, I'd urge you to look back right at that value video I made on how to, what makes Pokemon cards valuable, and try to apply those things to any Pokemon card and say, okay, well, yes, it's rare, yes, it's this, yes, it's that, but it's not historic, or it is historic, but it's not old, and not rare. And, what matters more is an open question. Which intrinsic value principle matters more? But, it's a great question, Swami. Because at the same time, some of the similarities, right, is that it's not a, if we look at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's not a need, right? That people don't need tulips and people don't need Pokemon cards at the level that we need food and water. So in that sense, they're not as intrinsically valuable as food and water are. Or shelter, these sorts of things. Now, unfortunately, people can get so addicted to physical things and so addicted to things like tulips, or so addicted to Pokemon cards, that they can start putting Pokemon cards over food and water, over things that should be more intrinsically valuable to them, because they're going to help regulate their mood. They're going to help them be happy. They're going to, all those sorts of things. And that's where you get in, when you start seeing that behavior, people going massively in debt, for these types of things. That's when you're like, okay, like that type of behavior is mania-ish. Amjad Abagadi says, hi, do you think Burning Shadows or Champion's Path is a good set to invest in when you take in regards the PSA Pop report? Yeah, so I don't think that either of them are like particularly good investments when compared to like certain vintage items, or items frankly outside of Pokemon, or stocks, or putting your money into like real estate, other sorts of areas. Again, not a financial advisor, but just giving you guys my personal opinion. Because of the risk I think associated with these things. I do think that Burning Shadows has the Rainbow Rare Charizard, Champion's Path has those two Charizards. I think Champion's Path is being hated on too much right now, to be completely honest with you guys. And that is interesting to me. It has two Chase Charizards in it at the end of the day. So, I get that there's a lot of it, and they printed a lot of that ETB, and we'll have to see what the pop of that ETB, what the pop report on these things are. If there's a lot more of these than Hidden Fates, then, I would agree. Hidden Fates should be more expensive anyway, because Hidden Fates is a much better set, and there's much more to it than just the Charizard. 100% for sure. I said that in my initial video on Champion's Path. But it still has those Charizards. And so I would be more interested in probably investing in that, or trying to pick those up at cheap, than I would be in like random booster boxes that don't have a Chase Charizard from this era. Just because people are saying it's like the worst set ever, and a lot of people are parroting that. I think there's a little bit of like exaggeration, to be completely honest, going on. Ruse Raptor says, I think there will always be a huge demand for evolutions, even if they print it into the ground. I could see myself with like 5 complete sets. Yeah, so I mean, you know, that's absolutely true, Ruse Raptor. It might be forever changed. You know, evolutions, there was no demand at all for evolutions, and no one even wanted it, and people were fire selling it right before a few months ago. But it's possible that all of a sudden lots of people have changed their minds on it, and you know, I would argue that is that because of the money? Like, were you in the hobby 7 months ago when you could have completed 5 sets for almost nothing, and now because the prices are higher, now you're interested in it? Or did you just come in the hobby, just see it, and now you're interested in it for the first time? You know, that's what I would say, because one of those things, you're falling for sort of hype and irrationality there, and things becoming valuable would be what is making you think it's good rather than the reality is you should actually, evolution should be more appealing to you at the $80 price than it is at the $400 price, rationally. So that's where we see the irrationality. Not saying you did that, Ruse Raptor, but I know that there are plenty of people who are having that response to evolutions. You might be, you know, new in the hobby and just genuinely like it, and that's cool. You know, I will say you unfortunately are at the mercy of, I think, people who manipulated that up, and you would have been able to pay a lot less if they hadn't pushed it so much, but that's a whole nother thing. Diego Grata says, if Evolutions doesn't get a reprint, we will all regret not buying them now for $500 US. So, we'll see. I highly, highly disagree. And I certainly will not regret it. If that box goes to $1,000 to $2,000, I will be panicking about. Then I'll feel like we're even more that we're in a bubble because of my value assessments on things, right? You know, we had a lot of people say that if, you know, I remember certain people, I'm not gonna call them out, say, you know, if Evolutions ever hits $500 a box, or if Evolution hits $1,000 a box, then we're in a bubble. We're not in a bubble now, but if that hits that, then we're in a bubble. So, it is what it is. Looks like the video is a bit choppy today. Sorry about that, guys. My internet connection is not great. Jimmy Holcomb asks, Jake, do you have any tips for picking lots to buy? Man, our stream today. I'm sorry, the picture's not working at all, huh, guys? That's so annoying. Oh well. I guess I'll just keep going because we're pretty far into the stream at this point. Yeah, so Jimmy asked, Jake, do you have any tips for picking lots to buy? So, knowing your price points is the first thing, Jimmy. So knowing, like for me, I often find the best value in the largest lots where there are pages and pages of cards, and even sometimes they don't put the most valuable stuff on the first page. And so definitely, like, if I'm going on eBay and I'm searching for something, what I'm looking for is, you know, I'll click on a lot, and you know, Rafi and I might do another eBay video at some point, and we can talk about this stuff. But what I'll look for is I'll go into eBay, I'll search, you know, Pokemon lots. Maybe oftentimes I look at the auctions. I try to buy the auctions, which tend to go for less than the best offers, but you can get great deals on best offers too. You know, I actually go highest to lowest often for me, because often the best deals are the most expensive, I find, because it's people wanting to sell very large lots and they don't want to take the time to break it up. And if you're willing to take the time to do it, that's generally the way to go. Not buying single cards, but buying very big lots where you can get them for like 40, 50, 60% on the dollar, that type of thing. So yeah, so you want to go high. So I'd go highest to lowest. I would take a look. I would see, like, are there any jam lots? I go through them. I price them out. I sit there and I price out exactly what I believe each card should be worth. I add it up in a calculator, or I add up in my head, one or the other, and then I know where I can bid, and then I figure out, okay, I want to pay 30 to 40% of that, or I want to pay 60% of that, or I'm going to pay 80% of it, right? Whatever you want in terms of your margin to then flip it, and or if you want to hold it, or if you want to add to your collection that you feel comfortable, paying at those prices. So, that's how I've gotten all my deals. I found a couple of deals here and there throughout this bull run, this bull period, but it's been a lot harder. I think that the reality is that a lot of those deals, it was much easier to find those. The best example is one of the ones I showed on the channel, that PSA lot I bought from Heritage Auctions. It was one of the last auctions. It kind of went a little unnoticed. It had a lot of lower graded cards in it, so people overlooked it, but I went through it. I added up all the value, and when I added up all the value, even at the time, it was going for about $8,000, $9,000 in full value, or at least very conservatively was going for $7,000 in value. I ended up buying the lot for $1,700, and I felt that limited for that first edition base at that time, the uncommons, commons, and rares were undervalued because so much else had grown, and that had not grown yet. And I happened to also get lucky that Logan Paul came in the hobby shortly after that. But, I ended up spending about $1,700 for a lot that ended up being worth about $15,000 or so. 10 to 15,000. If we want to be very conservative, we could say 10,000. But really, a lot of money. And so that, I bring it up because that's the type of thing that had all those principles I was looking for. I was looking at the time for first edition base, commons and uncommons and rares, because I felt that they were going to spike. That was my personal value assessment of the situation. I looked for a big lot where there were a lot of cards, and I looked for a lot where the best cards weren't necessarily on the first page, like this lot. They were in order. The best card in the lot was probably the PSA 10 first edition Charmander from base set, and again, that card in and of itself paid for more than the whole lot was worth, just one card. And it was a complete first edition base set, that I got outside of the holos. So that type of thing, and you can go back and watch that video on my channel if you haven't seen it, but that pulls together everything I talk about on this channel. You're making a value assessment on what's going to move next, what you think is overvalued, what you think is undervalued. Then you're looking for big lots. You're looking for things that are, further on in the page. What else? You're looking for things that are at an odd time, an auction that ends at an odd time, an auction that isn't getting much watches. You're looking for auctions that maybe don't have good keywords, that have odd keywords in them, that people aren't going to find those auctions. All of that sort of stuff is the game, okay? FCJ14 says, "Hi, Jake. I got a hold of Expedition Mew for $1,000. PSA 9 pop 104. PSA 10 pop 23. Congrats on your purchase. Definitely a great card." Nerd Angel says, "Turns out you get a lot of hate when you caution people to think on some of these prices before they go nuts." Yeah, I think that the fact that people are angry at me or upset with me shows that those people are the ones causing a bubble right now. Like those are that mindset. Now, to hear me and say I don't agree with your assessment, I disagree. I'm more bullish on it, and I think it's going to go up, and these are my reasons, is 100% reasonable. But the fact that people are afraid that if I speak my arguments, it's going to crash the market or bring the market down or bring your prices down, is that recognition or acknowledgement in themselves that they are overvaluing the cards and that other people are overvaluing the cards, and that me explaining these sorts of things is going to crash the market because they see that it's inflated. So that's just the stuff to be aware of. There are people who troll on all these channels that basically just come and try to hype their own product. They ask a question specifically trying to hype their own product. For example, they want me to say something bullish or positive. And then they thumbs up the video if I say something bullish. They thumbs down the video if I don't. There's plenty of that going on. But there are also a lot of people who are genuinely bullish and have interesting, good arguments. And those are the people that it's great to hear their perspective too. Everyone's perspective should be heard and argued. Amjad al-Baghdadi says, how do you determine a set will be collectible or valuable set in the future? So it's all it is supply and demand. Okay, so you want to know how much supply is there. You want to know what the print run is roughly. How much are you seeing out there? If you're in the PSA cards, you want to know how many 10s, how many 9s, how quickly are they being graded? How much do I think will be in the future? It's all very speculative, right? All of that stuff is speculation. And then you want to know what causes demand. You know, what brings demand, you know, for people. And historically, what brings demand for collectible items is historical quality, so important to the hobby. Rare, there aren't a lot of them in the world. You know, mint, they're, you know, high grade, you know, good looking cards that don't have damage. What else? We got age, you know, things that are older or original or the first one, or you know, like those types of things. So you want to be thinking about that for everything that you buy, in my view. Now, what is the most important is going to depend on the time. Right now, there are a lot of modern things. Like the Art Academy cards are not old; they're from 2015, but they're extremely rare. I think that they are going to be historic and important. So I like those. You know, so there can be modern things that are going to go down as very historic and important. I think Hidden Fates is a very historic set for Pokemon. Extremely important for Pokemon. Extremely historic. Is going to be extremely memorable. The problem with Hidden Fates may be very, very not rare, right? And is it more important that it's historical or more important that it's not rare in terms of its investment? And we don't know the answer to that. So that's the stuff that you should be calculating. E sends a super chat. Appreciate that. Says, thoughts on current prices of the Munch promos. I'd love a 10 set for my collection, but feel uncomfortable spending that much on more modern cards right now. But I'm also worried about them going up. Yeah, so listen, to be honest with you, I think that they're overpriced for what they are. But based on your wording here, E, you may want to buy them because I can tell that you really want them because you're worried they might go up and you want them for your collection. You're not asking me, should I buy them for an investment because I think they have a really good chance of continuing to go up and then I can flip them. You're saying, I really want them and I'm concerned that they're going to keep going up. And listen, I think that they're great looking cards. They're awesome. But they were hyped up a lot by certain influencers. And when I say hyped isn't even fair. Some influencers definitely hyped them and exaggerated them in some ways, and I saw that. Other influencers just showed them a lot and talked about how much they love them. And that is going to cause unintentional hype and more attention to those. Whereas there are other cards that might be also really great and other promos and Japanese promos and other sorts of places where you could put your money that have not gotten the attention, that have similarly cool characteristics. Now maybe not as cool as those specifically, but may have some other cooler elements to them, like rarer. For example, those aren't very rare. They have amazing art, but they're not that rare, you know? So that's my honest opinion on them. Do I think they are going to continue to go up in value? Easily could. Honestly, I have no idea, E. For me, they easily could go up in value because the trajectory that they've been on is very solid. They didn't like evolutions that just all of a sudden jumped to 400, which would scare the crap out of me if I had that box. These cards built, like, from the time they were released, steadily got more expensive because people wanted them immediately, and then people continued to want them as they went up. Now, that market was also built and made by people like Scott Pratt and by these other, you know, by a bunch of people who weren't manipulating it, but they bought a ton of them. They brought them into the West. They thought they would sell, and they kept selling them, and they built the market, and they kept making margins, and they kept selling more of them, and they kept going up because people really wanted them. There was great demand for them. But to be honest with you, it was also because people that they trusted and liked had them, and also said that they liked them. That's my personal opinion. So, you know, versus other things that no one's talked about, that no one said they liked, but are equally as cool, you know, or whatever. You know, like the Junior Rally promos are freaking awesome, right? They're older, they're rare, you know, maybe not rare, similar rarity, maybe rarer. They're not, you know, they they're not as maybe unique in some ways as these, but they're really cool elements to those, right? And you can get them you could for a long time get them for much cheaper in PSA 10. You had the Scream promos right when they came out were going for a lot, even though they were readily available and I could buy them all day from Japan, and I did buy a number of them and sold some because I knew I could cash in on that hype or on that attention that it was getting. Whereas I always try to invest in or put money into things where people are not seeing the value, whereas I am seeing the value where I don't feel other people are seeing the value. So what I would say about these is they are really good. I think that they're genuinely collectible. I think people genuinely love them, but they're also very seen. They're very in the public eye, and because of that, they've been priced a lot. I wouldn't say that they're, in any way an undiscovered gem. Let's put it that way. Sakari does some good videos on some of these. I've seen some of his videos. I don't agree. If you're still here, Sakari, love your channel, and Sakari's going to come on this channel, which I can't wait for. A great guy. I love talking to him. I don't agree with all of, of course he doesn't, I'm sure he doesn't agree with all of my assessments. I don't agree with all of the cards that he says should be valuable or are really underrated, that sort of thing, of course, but talks so much about all of these different Japanese promos that are excellent. And so, I think he learning more about other Japanese promos also could be a thing where it's like, well, actually, I really like these other promos and I can get them for cheaper and I like them just as much as the Scream ones. Would be something to look at. But I will say right now there doesn't seem to be a slowing down I definitely can't say that, I think those are going to have and you're going to get a good deal on them. I think it's far more likely for a lot of set cards to have in price than for a card like that to have in price that has slowly built up. I'd be more worried, cards that jump and double in very short amount of time, those are the cards that I think are more likely to retrace a huge amount. Okay. Pokemon Radar in the house. Hey, John. Nice to see you here. John and I had a nice conversation last night about Dragon Ball Z. Let's see. So Pokemon Raider says, if Pokemon does another famous art collab, and I think they will, it will only build the historic aspect of these Munch cards. Yeah, that's a good point. I do agree. I do think that and what I talk about on this channel, right, is that it's what promos stand out, and those clearly stand out because they are that really interesting art collab. They're full arts. They're also really cool, amazing looking cards. They have the main Pokemon in the front and then the other Pokemon in the back. There's a reason why people also naturally respond to those, and I do agree with John's point. I think it's a good one that it would create more attention and more of a larger set to collect if they do more of those types of things. And I do think that there's nothing else comparable to those Scream promos. So you can't just buy some, like, if those are the things you want, there's nothing else that's exactly like them. There's nothing else that's going to fill that collecting niche completely for you. I know people who have bought those, right, who aren't even like that much into Pokemon, but are super into, like they like Pokemon, but they really were attracted to those because they like art, they like art or something like that, and I remember talking to someone who sold a few for a friend who, he told me that they wanted them because their friend really liked Monk, and it was kind of like a funny joke between them. So there's that sort of crossover stuff. It's the same, similar with that Mario Pikachu. A lot of Nintendo collectors wanted to collect that one too. So when you get these sort of kind of like cross-branding types of things. Sakari says, I'm still here. Totally fine you don't agree with everything I say. No two people agree on everything. I think my opinions being challenged is a good thing. Yeah, I feel the same way. And I agree with a lot of your opinions. Part of why I want to have you on the channel. Definitely, you're definitely an underappreciated channel, my friend. You're actually bringing some decent thoughts and value and not repeating videos that I've seen other people make. Like, I notice that stuff and appreciate that stuff. I'm sure other people do too. What else we got here? Jason Blazek asks, what are your thoughts on Korean Pokemon cards? Any value there? Let's see. Korean. So I don't know that market well enough to speak on it in any way that would really be substantive, Jason. The thing to know, with my little bit of understanding, the thing to know about when we're thinking about buying anything outside of English and Japanese, which are the primary languages, the language that these things are initially made and printed in, and English the biggest sort of market for them right now. A lot of it is going to have to do. It's going to at the end of the day, it's still supply and demand, but you have to think, okay, how many people are going to want Korean cards? And that's probably very difficult to measure unless you are very engaged and have sold a bunch of Korean cards and understand that community, one. And two, how rare are they? Okay. And there are certain sets and there are certain cards that are like Chinese base set first edition, is pretty rare from what I hear. I don't have first-hand knowledge of this, but I hear that it's quite rare. So there are certain things like in base set first edition or in other sets where a certain language might be very rare or rarer than some of the other languages. And if you get completionists who want completed versions in all languages, there can be opportunity in there. But if you're just talking about, stuff that already isn't that investable, and then you're also getting it in Korean or in another language, I think that basically you're just shrinking the probable demand for it. And really, you're going to need all of the English and Japanese stuff, or most of it, to be bought, and for those prices to establish themselves very high in order for there to be a market, for the Korean cards, which would likely be of lower value unless they have some sort of extreme rarity feature. So again, it all comes back to that knowledge stuff, though. Sakari says, thanks for the kind words. You're welcome, man. I absolutely mean it. For me, it's there are a number of channels. Swami's channel too. Love Swami's channel. Like I most of the time, and Joe from OmniPoke, if Joe's still here, can confirm this. Like he's the same way. Like we prefer watching real people say things about their collecting journey and give honest opinions on smaller channels are some of the best, most useful information. Not just information like you telling me something that I didn't, or telling Joe something that we didn't know necessarily about a specific card, although sometimes you guys definitely do, but also just getting perspectives of real collectors who are passionate and hearing them talk, very honestly and authentically is invaluable. So OmniPoke, yeah, real humans talking is entertaining. There's that too, right? The hype channels that are where people aren't where you get a feeling like they're not really sharing their opinion, or everything is very tailored and very because they have a lot to lose, they're really pressured to build and hold a big audience. They're trying not to offend anyone. Channels like that are not gonna, the smaller channels are gonna be more free to share more radical opinions for because they're not as afraid of the backlash, those sorts of things. Golduck's my place say, Jake, did you know that there are 4 duck-based Pokemon in Gen 1? Psyduck, Golduck, Porygon, and Farfetch'd. Which is the most amount of same animal-based Pokemon from one gen? Love it. I did not think of that. Hilarious, great fact. Ducks for the win. Joe Cartwright, have you ever been interested in doing a video with any YouTubers who are extremely bullish and overhyped cards? Could be an interesting conversation. So I think that I've done a few videos with I think the vast majority of people on YouTube to me seem quite bullish and have been quite bullish. And I think that now, do I say that they're hyping some of the people I brought on? I guess in some cases I do, unintentionally. That's my personal opinion. But if you guys have any ideas of someone specific who you feel like has really like interesting, solid arguments and you feel like would be open to a discussion, please share that with me. You can share it with me here. You can share it with me on Instagram. Cause I'm, I have about 8 or 9 more people I have scheduled to interview right now, but we can, I'll add them to that list, I'm just interested in providing, I'm not trying to craft a narrative here that I don't want to be challenged. Like, the goal of this channel is not consensus. The goal of this channel is growth and knowledge. So because of that, ideally I'm going to change my opinion and be persuaded of different things, just like all of you guys here are going to change your opinions by being on this channel. Like, to me, a good sign of actually a useful channel is one where you are hearing multiple sides of arguments and you are coming away with new ideas and actually feeling challenged, rather than leaving here thinking, oh, I was right and this person confirmed it completely, right? And that's going to happen, of course, and it does feel good to have people confirm your viewpoints, but it's more valuable in the long run to have people often who don't confirm your viewpoints and argue, opposite viewpoints. Although I will say that the challenge with that is I want someone who is very knowledgeable, about has been in the hobby, has a lot of money in the hobby, has people who have a long selling history, a lot of depth. I would want for that conversation. So I'm not aware of someone like that who I just feel like is extremely bullish that we haven't interviewed already. Charlie was obviously very bullish in that interview, and Zach was very bullish. Gem and Pokemon's pretty bullish. I think John from Pokemon Radar is I'm not sure he's bullish or bearish, but he's definitely fairly bullish, at least on certain things. And maybe overall a little bit more bullish than me, although a lot of the time I'm just playing devil's advocate to people and not, and if, like, I'm going to have Squeaks Gaming on here, who's maybe more bearish, and one of the first, like, really bearish people I'm going to have on the channel. I think him and, Mason maybe a little bit on talking about the modern and some of the negatives and some of the concerns he's seeing, Cardinal Gaming. But for the most part, it's pretty much everyone is and now people are changing what they're saying. People who were bullish 3-4 months ago are not as bullish now and are talking about it because the price is, it's easy to play. It's easy to, easy is not quite the fair way to put it. It's what you're going to see is that people are going to move with the market. So they're going to be very bullish when things are going up a lot, and they're going to be very bearish when things are going down a lot, and that's the majority of people. The majority of people often go with, rather than trying to predict what's going to happen next, they talk about or explain what's happening. And I wouldn't call them necessarily bullish or bearish, just that they're sort of talking about what's happening rather than trying to predict what's going to happen. If that makes sense. T.S. Williams says, is your Instagram still Pokenomics, Jake? Yeah, it's Pokenomics with an underscore at the end. Yeah, you guys can contact me there. I don't always get back to everything, depending on how many messages, but I do try and get back to most things and try to respond to almost everyone. Omnipoke says, Joe says, if everyone is a bull, does that mean that this bull trap could last months/years? Yeah, this may not be a bull trap. This may be a new stabilizing point for a lot of these prices, because the awareness has really changed on Pokemon, and there are just a lot more people who are valuing these cards at or above the current valuations, or currently what they're going for. Only time will tell. Mason says, I love Squeaks, and your personalities interacting will be so entertaining. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Squeaks and I are going to get along pretty well. So unfortunately, I didn't know. I didn't see Squeaks' channel. I only found out about Squeaks through Pokemon Radar, who I've become friends with, and them doing their great podcast. You guys should go subscribe to that and watch that. They have great conversations. Really like both of them. Definitely looking forward to getting to know Squeaks, on this channel, but also more in general. I was talking to John a little bit about him, and just he has a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience, and I think a really smart, bright, interesting, honest, authentic dude from what it looked, what he seems like on screen. Jimmy Jam Meyer says, percentage wise, how much less are you spending now than before Jake Paul? So the thing that I got wrong really was that wasn't expecting Jake Paul, and I didn't think the market was going to take another big leap. So I was already not spending very much, Jimmy, right before Jake Paul came in. So what changed once Jake Paul came in is I started becoming a seller. So before Jake Paul came in the hobby, I was selling basically nothing. After Jake Paul came in, I started selling cards that I was planning on holding for like 10 to 15 years because the prices just made me so uncomfortable. But I missed out on some gains that I could have made somewhere between August and October. Like I felt like it was already, by the time we got into August, I already felt like I couldn't buy any more Pokemon unless I was getting like really great, like really, really under market deals. And from August to October, when he came in the hobby, the Pokemon market went up a lot again. So I, wasn't predicting that. I mean, yeah. So, in terms of now, I'm not spending, my passion right now, right this second, and buying is Dragon Ball Z. I'm all in on that, loving it. I also I want to see what happens with the general economy. I'm actually starting a new job soon, and making a bit of a transition in my personal life in terms of I'm moving and starting a new job. So, my thing is I'm just going to wait to see what happens with Pokemon in the next 6 months for the most part. And I'm comfortable missing out on gains, because I don't know how to correctly predict or evaluate these things, how other people are going to value these things in the next 6 months. I think it's very up in the air myself. In the last video, I argued, right, for the bearish position that a lot of these cards are going to come back down to what would make more sense if we talk about like a nice steady trajectory rather than what happened, which was like this, and that maybe it's going to fall and then it's going to hit sort of a nice, I don't feel confident that that's going to happen. What bothers me is that people aren't making that argument, and that anyone who makes that argument, people are strongly disagreeing with. That's worrying. That to me tells me people are far too optimistic from what I would view as the rational kind of middle response of like any number of sorts of things could happen. So that's where I'm at. So for me, I was definitely playing devil's advocate, in that video. I am not panicking about the future of Pokemon. I'm also not like, oh my god, like jumping, I'm going to put all my money to Pokemon and make a killing. Definitely don't feel that way. But that doesn't mean that, some people might put a lot of money in Pokemon right now and might feel very bullish, and they may end up being correct. So, and good for them. Jimmy Jam Mayer says that's kind of how he feels too. Rainy Collectible says, new job, congrats. Thank you. Some people congratulating me on my new job. Appreciate that. Ty's Willems. Radazor says, I got a couple Dragon Ball figures this week, actually. Nothing investable, though. They just look cool. Nice to hear some collection stuff, right? Me too, man. I'm passionate about this Dragon Ball stuff right now because I love it as a collection. I love collecting. I love the hunt. Of course, the potential value increase for these sorts of things is exciting to me. I'd be lying to say that I don't like the idea of my collectibles at least retaining value, if not going up in value. But I would be absolutely fine if all the collectibles I'm buying right now have in price. And that's just what I suggest people feel the same way about Pokemon, Steel Max says, quit your job and do YouTube 24/7. That's never going to happen. I'm passionate about my career, and I that's what I want to do. This is sort of a good balance of me of like doing, a couple videos a week, just kind of hanging out, talking, and, you know, as long as it remains engaging and fun, I'll keep doing it. Radazor says, Yu-Gi-Oh! Seems too established to be anything with big upside, to be honest. Yeah, I think that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is quite, has been, you know, has seen humongous growth. You know, I would caution the word established, because I think none of these markets are very established, but I think because of how much growth they've seen, you and I see eye to eye on a lot of things, so I know you didn't mean it this way, but that it's just as likely or more likely to go down a lot after going up a lot than it is to like continue to grow a lot. Yeah. So Swami says, cross my fingers. Oh, some people talking about. Swami knows a little bit about DBZ with this Boo Saga Limited. Joe Cartwright says, just bought the DBZ Blu-ray set. It's been great revisiting the franchise. Yeah, me too. Since I've been getting back into collecting the cards, I've been getting back into the anime too, and I've been rewatching episodes. And I absolutely love Dragon Ball Z. It does, of course, Dragon Ball Z is like hilariously repetitive, and like there's just a new stronger villain, and they all have to like get stronger every time to defeat it. But what can I say? I'm just a sucker. I'm a sucker for the characters. I'm a sucker for just like keep getting stronger, guys. You know, keep bringing in just like a new ridiculous level of strength, and keep finding just like stronger villains, like higher deities. I'll watch it all. Swami says he's been opening Panini. Yeah, I think Panini is a good place to start. There's a lot of Panini and it's very cheap, but to see if you sort of like the feel of the vintage cards, like opening up some Panini is a good place to start. I will say that Score is so much, I think, more enjoyable than Panini, because Score has, I think, much better ultra rares and better certain foiling, and Panini just doesn't have that. There's something about the Panini cards that just lacks that. I think it also lacks a little bit of the vintage feel. There's something newer feeling about those cards. But I think Panini is a great place to start and is a lot of fun. Derek Harshberger says, hey Jake, just saw you were live. Love what you're doing for the Pokemon TCG community. Been listening to a lot of the past streams at work. Great info. Thanks, Derek. That's very kind of you to take the time to let me know that. Jimmy J. Meyer says, have you heard about the SpongeBob TCG? I have not, but I should look into it, because my girlfriend's father loves SpongeBob. Him and I just like nerd out on like collectibles, cards, like figurines, and he's like a huge SpongeBob fan. So I might have to get him hooked on that then. I'd have to take a look and get him hooked. Miley Rose says, do you think the difficulty / confusion with understanding chase cards in the Score DBZ will prevent newer casual collectors from entering the market? Yeah. So I haven't talked substantively about DBZ. There's a lot of stuff in Score DBZ that has made it so that it hasn't taken off. Some things that will be very difficult to overcome, other things that it's just a knowledge gap and it's just about people making the material and the game will explode, in my opinion. Some things, but there's some factors that Pokemon has that DBZ Score doesn't have that really were very integral and important in Pokemon taking off. So, and we'll definitely get into that on the channel. Joe Cartwright says Cell Saga rare foiling is incredible. Yeah, so many of these are. Jody Matoma says DBZ Nomics, yeah. Yeah, we're always going to stay, focused on Pokemon, but, I really think that these other card games and these other sorts of things, hopefully people who are here for Pokemon also love that, because a lot of us are just genuine collectors. We love pop culture. We grew up at the same time, but I love, Harry Potter, Yu-Gi-Oh!, DBZ, like all these things I'm a big, have a passion for. So, and I want to talk about what I enjoy, so that it's actually enjoyable for me and hopefully then more enjoyable for you. And not just repeating, the same stuff over and over again type of thing. E says favorite DBZ card set. So my favorite DBZ card set, I would say right now, my favorite one, not the one that I think necessarily should be the most expensive, but my favorite one is probably Cell Saga. I think that the ultra rares are great, but I also think just the normal foil personalities are really sweet. The rarer ones like the Trunks and Frieza, those are two of the rarest sets. Trunks probably being the rarest, and those two are not just probably the rarest sets, but also two of the most desirable sets. The chase card from the hobby is actually in the Majin Buu limited. The chase set card, I should say, or the Charizard equivalent set card. But there are a lot of amazing ultra rares, across the sets. For those of you who don't know, the cards that are the biggest chase cards are called ultra rares generally, but the ultra rare personalities are the ones that people are most after from the sets. So let's do a little bit more Pokemon, and then I am gonna end for today. Let's see, any more Pokemon here? Some people talking about Digimon as well. Love it. Love that you guys. All right, I guess I'll answer one more DBZ. I'm getting some DBZ questions. What's my favorite ultra rare? So, I do have to say I think that the Goku Super Saiyan 3, the Charizard of DBZ, is an incredibly cool card. The other cards I love the ultra rares from Cell. I love Vegeta Revitalized, the Goku ultra rare from that set. Those two ultra rares I love. Yeah. Benjamin Wendler asks, Jake and Rafi, have you seen the latest secret lair from MTG? What do you think about them? So Rafi's more of the MTG guy of the two of us. If Rainy Day Collectibles is still here, he could probably they could probably weigh in. I know they know that stuff pretty well, but although I think he works for Magic the Gathering, so can only say so much. But I can't comment on it because honestly I just don't have a passion for Magic. I love the game. I like playing the game, but as a collectible, I don't have passion for collecting Magic. There's something about my pop culture collectibles that I really have a passion for collecting. It's just the way it works out for me. But I'm not, I still think that they're. Wolf of Tin Street is also here from that channel and could help. Yeah, feel free to answer if you have a Magic the Gathering question. Wolf of Tin Street is definitely has some good knowledge there. So in the comments, it looks like he'll give you some good answers. It's a team effort here. We've got some great knowledgeable people here, I can assure you, in the chat. It's part of why I like doing this. Dwan says the "You Are Future Trunks" is hot. There are so many great cards. Golduck's Mindplay says, Jake, did you ever play the actual Pokemon card game? So I never once played it as a kid, Golduck. Not a single time. I think I didn't learn the rules when I was a kid, so my friends and I did played it a little in a sort of like a fake way. But I never played it. But then as an adult, I did play it. So when I got back into Pokemon, I played like online a little bit. Just to like learn the game and see what it's like and get a little bit of a sense of the game. But never more than that. I probably played 100 to 200 games, something like that. So not like a massive amount of games, but I did play a little bit. I love games. So, yeah. So I might I could see myself getting a little bit more into it. I wanna plan on going to maybe Worlds one year and going to some of these things. But what I really am passionate about and hope they do again, and I talked to Charlie about this, and and hopefully they will do this stuff again, is the collectors, the collectors meetup, whatever I forget what they called it, but the where instead of Worlds, which is basically players, and a lot of collectors of course go because we're big fans of it, we're gonna have a collectors gathering, where a bunch of collectors from all over the country can hopefully come and meet each other and share knowledge and just kind of nerd out for a weekend. I think that would be really cool. ODV Pokemon seems to have asked a question a few times, so I guess I'll ask this again. Your thoughts on Japanese energy prize cards, etc. Okay, Battle Road 2004, 2006, React Rainbow Energy promos, etc. So I like these a lot, and let me see if you come up. Yeah. So the honest truth is, I'm not super knowledgeable about them. Um, uh, I look them up myself. I track some of the pop reports on these sorts of things, and I do see how much they come up. I have not found any really great information on like how many of these exist. I mean, when I check my like, I have a list of the rarest cards that has been compiled by some of the people who know the most in the hobby, that I can refer to, and like these are not, they're not on it. Like I don't think that we know exact distributions of a lot of these things. So yeah, it's kind of just it's part of what makes them difficult to collect or feel confident collecting, is knowing how many are out there. What I would say is, like, if you like them, if you think they're cool, likely other people will feel the same way and discover those types of things eventually, and that they can have great like undiscovered value in them for sure. Yeah, sorry I can't, be more specific, like give you some like really great insider information about like they're this many, we think they're this many of that, this many of that. I just don't have it. Um, yeah, I find those cards are actually hard to track too, because like getting the like from each year, and like when I was looking on like Pokemon Price, trying to match the right one I was looking at to the right, like to the right year, to the right time of the year, like it's challenging. It's pretty, it's super niche. It's super niche. Um, Dr. Fuzz Napolis says, is a gem mint grade overrated for your collecting goals? So I like gem mint cards. I like PSA cards myself. Not everyone does. Lots of people are just comfortable with cards in a binder. For me, as an investor, I'm attracted to graded cards and that sort of thing. But for me, I'm also very attracted as a collector. So I can tell you for 100% sure, there are plenty of us collectors out there who like the graded cards, and it's not just all about the money or the perceived value. For me, it's knowing, it's having, having it authenticating, having it protected, encapsulated. I like the look of the case, and I also having people agree sort of on the condition of the card, and for it all to be like very obvious for it to see. I think all of that's valuable. Rainy Day Collectible says, what are your thoughts on Ancient Mew? I sold probably 1,000 sealed copies last year, and I have another 200 at PSA. It's a fan fave, but obviously have almost infinite supply. Yeah, I don't, yeah, I've never been a big buyer or seller of the Ancient Mew. I've heard other people talk about them who have graded a bunch, and how difficult it is to grade, or like the different types, the errors that you might see. Not my area of expertise, Ancient Mew, and just not my area of interest. I guess for whatever reason, I'm not that interested in that card and was never interested in it. I think it's because it just doesn't really look like a Pokemon card to me. That's all I can. That's the only thing I can say. Like when I see that card, doesn't bring me that much back to my childhood. But a lot of people it does, and that's totally valid. So, a lot of people like Mew. I think for a lot of people, including myself, was sort of the card that we didn't get, and we all thought the Mew card would be like the rarest card, the hardest card. Also from the Game Boy games, right? We didn't get Mew, or and so I think that there was this mystique around Mew as the rarest and hardest, and the card that was going to be worth $1 million. So I think that type of mystique kind of went around that Mew promo card, even though it was extremely extreme. There's so many of those, like endless amounts. So yeah, I just don't have huge interest for that card. I think to each their own. Derek Cashberger says there's 4 different versions of Ancient Mew. Depends which ones you have, the quality. Yeah. Yep. That's the basic. And then Derek says, so much nostalgia in that card for me. Yeah, exactly. And that's, because for some people there's a ton of nostalgia, a ton of connection. For me, there just wasn't. And I'm sure Derek and I both love Pokemon equally. You know, so that's part of the market, is that some of us are going to have connections to certain cards because we had them as a kid or we heard about them as a kid, and some of us didn't have connection to that promo and we had a connection to a different promo. You know, for me, the Southern Islands, I'm more of a connection to than that. You know, so it just sort of is what it is. Ruse Raptor says also, yeah, he always wanted that card when he was young too. Yeah, and I think a lot of people have that experience. For whatever reason, I just didn't. I'm not even sure exactly why. Um, Coasty 100 says, do you own Southern Islands sealed binder? I do not. I don't own any sealed product of Southern Islands. Just some PSA cards. I have a almost complete set right now being graded by PSA that I hope will come back at some point. It's been 9 months. We'll see what grades I get back. I think I graded about half of it. Jesus Gutierrez says, I think, or Jesus Gutierrez says, I think Pokemon has really been stepping up their promos as of late. Yeah, I really like some of their promos too. Some of those Japanese promos are beautiful. I mean, the last 2 years though, I mean, there have been so many great looking promos for sure. Swami says he's leaving. Great talk. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you too. Thank you so much for joining. I think we are going to end the chat for everyone too. I think it's because Swami left, there's no point in continuing the chat. So no, I'm just joking. Thank you all so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure talking to you all. Look forward to doing more of these. I hope everyone has a wonderful start to their new year this week, and I will talk to all of you guys next Sunday. Parker Kish just asked one more quick question. Jake, have you got any ideas around the Japanese 2007 fan club cards? I've got a lot of ideas around them and talked about them a lot. Maybe we'll have to continue talking about those next time, okay? All right, Parker. Because there's a lot to say about those. But in terms of like exact print runs, we don't know. We don't